So let's get into the types of clouds now. And in general, let's keep it fairly simple. I'm going to basically want you to know everybody should know cumulus clouds, stratus clouds, and then cirrus and the cumulonimbus, right? The cumulus clouds. Now, there is variation there depending on altitude. Alto, like an alto sax, basically means high. Altitude is high. So middle level clouds are like alto stratus or alto cumulus. And then the cirrus clouds are way up here in the high altitudes. And you can call them cirrocumulus if they're kind of in bunches like that, or cirrostratus if it's kind of like a layer. But at any rate, we'll keep it simple. And then the nimbostratus is the rain clouds, where it's just a layer. That's what we get in fall when people complain about Seattle weather. So cumulus clouds are the fluffy and puffy clouds. These are the ones you're going to see on a nice spring day. And people tend to enjoy these being a lot of people's favorite kinds of clouds because that's, usually what you see when it's a gorgeous day. All right, cumulus clouds. The word cumulus is the same root word as to accumulate something. And so it's like a pile in Latin. And it's caused by convection. And you'll have cumulus clouds. It can happen over a parking lot can have a cumulus cloud over it if it's getting hotter than the surrounding grasslands area. Okay, these are the nice day, fluffy cotton ball kinds of clouds. And so those are cumulus clouds. And now the reason that they have that kind of a fluffy top is because they're rising upwards. As they rise up, it goes up into the air. And that's what gives it that shape. If they're hanging out at the same altitude for a while, they tend to lose that shape. It becomes more amorphous is the word for it, where it means without so much shape. But if you get a real cotton ball kind of shape to it, that means it's rising up. The next type we're doing here is the stratus clouds. Stratus means layer, okay? So basically, overcast. These are the kinds of clouds that the Seattle area, the Northwest, is famous for. The gray sky, the gloomy, oh man, it's nothing but gray around here for months on end. That's the stratus clouds. We're very familiar with those in the Pacific Northwest. And now, if they're at ground level, we have a special name for them. It's fog. But if they're rain clouds, now if there's rain coming out of them, they have a special name, nimbostratus. Okay, so clouds, stratus clouds. Okay, they generally don't have a very distinctive shape because they're moving along as a layer, but they're not rising actively, so they don't have that sort of fluffy, puffy shape. Now, cirrus clouds are kind of fun clouds. Those can happen either in winter or in summertime. These are the really high altitude clouds, way up. These things are about 10 miles up. And what they are actually, those aren't water droplets. Those are ice crystals. It's so high up that there's no way you can have liquid water that high up. And sometimes you get these sort of nice, beautiful streak shapes to them. Now this one here is called a cirrocumulus cloud. It's kind of a combination of the cumulus name and the cirrus name. But anyway, sometimes that's called a mackerel sky. Like it looks like the scales of a mackerel. Or here, this thing here, what you got is with halo around the sun. And if you ever see a ring around the sun, now if our eyes were good enough, and people don't often see this because you don't look at the sun too much, this is the high altitude cirrostratus clouds where the sunlight going through them, and each one acts like a prism. That is a prism, not a prison, but it separates the spectrum, and it's kind of like a rainbow around the sun. And in fact, they would be making a rainbow if somebody was looking at it from another direction. So that's the halo around the sun is also the high altitude crystals. Now, the coolest kinds of clouds, in my opinion, the most awesome clouds of all time is the cumulonimbus, the mighty cumulonimbus, also called thunderheads. And you might notice here what we have, these are called cumulus towers. And notice the flat bottom, but what you have is convection going on like crazy. These show up when you have the collision of two air masses. What's going on here is the air is rising so much it gets to the top of the troposphere. Remember we talked about the layers of the atmosphere? Here's the troposphere, and under that is the stratosphere. And the temperature starts getting warmer when you get into the stratosphere because the ozone is absorbing the ultraviolet light, so it can't rise any higher. As hot air rises because it's less dense. Well, this air is warmer than the air that's rising. This is what happens when you get the collision of two air masses. These happen only like in cold fronts or occluded fronts. And the cold air is just pushing the warm air upward. And all the moisture in there is condensing. And it's got major convection. And it can't go any higher, so it starts spreading out. Here's a view from space, where you get from the International Space Station. Again, you can see that it's hit the roof of the atmosphere, or at least the top of the troposphere. It's called the tropopause, is what it's called. And it's the boundary between the troposphere and the stratosphere. And it's trying to burble up higher, but it can't. And here you have the cumulus towers. And that convection makes all kinds of things happen. Here's another picture, very similar. And so we have the cumulus clouds, the stratus clouds, the cirrus clouds, and the cumulonimbus clouds. And they go all the way from low altitude all the way to high altitude. The cumulonimbus are the granddaddy of all clouds. And that's where you get thunderstorms and things like that. Now there's other kinds of clouds. This is a lenticular cloud. What this is the air, remember it's the air rising that makes the condensation happen because it reaches its dew point. And with the air is moving over the mountain and it condenses, and as it comes back down, it evaporates again. So this cloud might look like it just hangs out on the top of the mountain there for a while, but really it's more like a river because the air is moving through that space and it just turns into liquid droplets as it goes over through there because it reaches the dew point, and then it evaporates again. Here's a double layer lenticular cloud right over the mountain. And so again, what's going on here is you have, sometimes it's called the laminary quality of air, and it can form various layers. And as it rises, it'll condense. As it falls, it'll evaporate. So here's one over Mount Rainier. There have been people actually call in to like the police or whatever, thinking, oh, there's a UFO over Mount Rainier. No, it's a lenticular cloud. They're pretty cool. Here's another one from Mount Rainier. What happened is the air went this way, and then it reached the dew point here. So the lenticular cloud is actually following behind Mount Rainier. This is called a mammatus. This sometimes will show up at the bottom of a thunderstorm. And these are, I've only seen these maybe a dozen times in my life. They're pretty impressive when you see them, though. You're going to have a thunderstorm. There's going to be hail and lightning and everything when you see these, though. And there's another view taken from underneath when the sunlight's shining through. That's an awesome photograph. That's the bottom of a cloud, believe it or not. Now, this is an interesting kind of cloud. You don't see these very often. They're called the Kelvin-Helmholtz clouds. They make the like waves. And what's going on is the cloud is rolling along through the atmosphere. And as it rises, it condenses, and as it falls, it evaporates. Here's some other ones that are pretty awesome. Those are the Kelvin-Helmholtz clouds. Now these, where you see contrails, what's going on here, that's an airplane flying by. Now as the airplane flies by, its fuel will release particles. It will, kind of act as condensation nuclei. Remember when we did that air pressure condensation thing in the bottle? We put the smoke in there? Well, that'll help the droplets form around this. It gives them something to attach to. Anyway, contrails are the same kind of deal, where you get the hot air coming out of the jet engine with a lot of moisture in it too, because you burn that fuel, it creates water and carbon dioxide, right? Just like respiration does. And so it'll leave these streaks of clouds caused by airplanes. And here's a picture of, sometimes you'll see people say things like, it's like the U.S. government is making these chemtrails. Nonsense. They're just contrails. Okay? Anyway, so, all right, let's practice this for a second. What's this kind of cloud? Here, everybody say it. What is it? What is it? What is it? Say it. Say it. Cirrus clouds. Okay, and down here you have these other clouds. What are those? Cumulus clouds. Very good. Oh, what's this kind? Flat bottom. It goes all the way to the top. It's like 10 miles high. Anvil top. Cumulonimbus. Very good. And then what's this? Doesn't have much shape. Stratus cloud. Stratus means layer. Okay. How about these? What are those? Cumulus clouds. The rising air condenses. And you get those sort of cottony shapes because the air is rising up. And you can watch them move. I challenge you to go outside and stand there long enough to actually watch the cloud shape. And sometimes they'll just disappear before your eyes or appear before your eyes. There's a lot of motion. It just goes slower than our brains normally track things.